How's it everyone? Welcome to another string review right here on OpenCourt. I'm Kent and today I'm reviewing a string that was sent to me by a viewer of this channel. His name is Rshett, so thank you Rshett for sending me this string. I don't have the package with me because he sent it to me as a loose set, but it is a string that some people have commented that I should try. I have heard of this string, but I never got a chance to trying it until Rshett sent this to me. So today we're taking a look at the Tier 1 Firewire. So Tier 1 has actually changed their name and now they're called Tru Pro. So it's the Tru Pro Firewire now. And Rshett sent me a set of the Firewire, and this string is a triangular shaped monofilament copolyester. So that right there shows you that it's meant for spin. It's meant to grip the ball, and when I was stringing it, the edges were very sharp, and it was actually kind of a pain in the butt to string this, as most stiff and shaped strings are. But I like spin. That's one of the main things that I look for when testing a poly, so I was very excited to try this Firewire. Plus it's red. I love red strings. Red is my favorite color, although this string does come in a black color as well. It has 3 gauges, 130, 125, and 120. With a triangular shaped string, I usually like thinner gauges, 120 being my favorite gauge, but when the string is that thin, when it's triangular, that means that it's actually thinner, the profile, than other strings. So I actually prefer 125 or even a 127, somewhere between 125 and 130 would be my ideal gauge. But Rshett knows that I like thinner gauges, so he sent me the 120mm Firewire for me to try. Alright, so I got the Tru Pro Firewire strung up here in my head graphene touch speed adaptive. I chose to string it in this because it's a red, black, and white racket, and red strings look beautiful in this racket. Yeah, I'm an aesthetic guy, so that's how I usually decide which rackets to string it in. But this string, when I was stringing it, felt very firm. The website claimed that this string plays a little bit more on the crisper side, so I'm excited to see that, and obviously it's going to produce insane amounts of spin based on the triangular shape. I've only ever used one other triangular shaped polyester in my life, and I believe that was the Dunlop explosive bite. I believe that one's also triangular. So without further ado, let's get on the court and let's test out this Firewire. But before that, if you guys like this content and want to see more, be sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button to keep the reviews coming. So let's start with the pros of the Tru Pro Firewire string. I had absolutely no expectations going into this playtest because I knew pretty much nothing about this string, and I never really had a way to get a hold of a set to test. But let's start with what I liked. The Firewire has good power potential and allowed me to really drive through the ball and hit deep penetrating ground strokes. My backhand is the weaker of my ground strokes, so the assistance in power from the string was greatly appreciated. Also, because of my short stature, high backhands are especially difficult for me to generate power, so the Firewire came in handy anytime my opponent hit a deep loopy shot to my backhand. I was able to generate tremendous amounts of pace and depth when I got my hips fully rotated and I felt the ball sinking into the string bed and launching out. I actually preferred my backhand to my forehand during this playtest because the natural spin from the string made my backhand glide low and stay in, while the power from the string added speed. I felt the launch angle was much higher on my whippier forehand, and I often had a hard time keeping my forehand in the court when I flattened it out. However, one of the best aspects of the Firewire is the spin potential. This string's shaped profile combined with its elasticity meant easy spin generation on fast swings. Because I swing a bit more vertically on my forehand than my backhand, I could really feel the strings displacing and snapping back. The softer makeup allows the strings to stretch even more out of position and snap back to impart spin. I did find myself fixing strings during the early goings, but once the strings settled in, string movement didn't become an issue. When I tried to take off some pace and hit deep on forehands by aiming higher over the net, the Firewire gave me the confidence that my shot would land in, and the results spoke for themselves. I could see my shot diving down just inside the baseline. This especially helped on my returns because I like to step in and swing. This leads to some overhitting, and the spin brought the ball down, especially when I swung more low to high. My serves were on point with the Firewire, and without a doubt it was my favorite shot to hit with this string. The flexible string bed lent itself to great pace generation on my flat serve. Because I also used this string in a slightly extended racket, this combination allowed me to plow through the contact point and hit fast penetrating flat serves. On the slice, the additional pace as well as the side spin generated from the grip of the strings made my slice serve a tough ordeal for my opponents. But I think my kick serve was the most reliable with the Firewire. Two reasons for this. First, like I mentioned earlier, the Firewire is fairly flexible, so I felt the strings really displacing, and the upward snapping motion meant the serve launched off the strings with a high trajectory, and I rarely faulted in the net because of that. Second, the strings really grab the ball and provide topspin, which brings the ball down inside the service line, and I could count on my kick serve to not only be a high percentage serve, but also one that I could use as a weapon and follow up to the net. Speaking of net, the softer and more powerful response of the Firewire allowed me to pick up volleys hit at my feet with ease by blocking in front of my body. It also provided good put-away power on mid and high volleys as well as overheads. Winning points at net by punching through contact was pretty easy, and I felt more comfortable relying on power volleys than touch volleys to win points. Also, the Firewire is a relatively comfortable string, although if you have arm issues, I probably still wouldn't use it. But I did feel the Firewire is more comfortable than the Hyper-G, which I playtested recently. Although the feel and response is a bit wiry, which I would like to touch on in the next section. Overall, I thought the Firewire did two things really well: provide good spin and power. However, I felt the overall playability of the string was lacking, and the control was also a bit problematic. Let's get into that now. So let's talk about the cons I found in the Tru Pro Firewire. The first is the feel and response. It was a rather wiry feel, and it felt very odd on full swings. I wonder if this is why they call it Firewire. When I mean wiry, the string gives initially on contact and pockets the ball, but quickly firms up where the pocketing stops abruptly. This gives the strings a rather firm feel on full swings where I really put my weight into my shot. This seems contradictory to what I said earlier when I said this string is fairly comfortable, but I feel like that's only if you have a slower swing. If you don't swing fast enough to get to the point where the strings stiffen up by reaching the limit of its pocketing, you may not experience this wiry feeling. However, as an aggressive swinger, I felt this quite often, and it gave me less confidence my shots were going to land where I was aiming. The feel also made it a bit difficult for me to hit my drop shots and angles because I wasn't getting the direct feedback in my arm to hit my finesse shots. Because the string doesn't have a firm feel on initial impact, I wasn't feeling the vibrations to hit slower drop shots. This is a pretty big part of my game, especially when I'm in the front court, and this affected my results in doubles. The second issue I had was with the control. Because I'm an aggressive swinger, I prefer something that is on the stiffer side with a lower trajectory. The Firewire gives a bit too much on my aggressive strokes. That is the downside to a string that has so much string movement on full swings. The string displaces and launches the ball off at a higher trajectory, and this led to some inconsistencies on my forehand. This wasn't a big issue on my backhand because I swing in more of a straight line, but my forehand would sometimes sail long. This was especially an issue on my approach shots. When I received a slow and high ball to attack, a lot of these approach shots went past the baseline because I was well inside the court when I hit, and the trajectory was a bit too high for me to control. When rallying from the baseline, I felt more comfortable hitting high and loopy topspin shots that would land deep and bounce high to push my opponents back. Also, the tension maintenance on the Firewire isn't the best. This is commonplace with softer shaped strings. Once the tension dropped, I felt even less control on my aggressive forehands, returns, and approach shots. At that point, I pretty much decided to hit almost every forehand with a low to high swing to try to get topspin. However, the spin potential also drops off a bit with the loss in tension because the strings lost some of its snapback. And that's about it for the cons. Honestly, there weren't too many issues with this string, but the ones I had were deal breakers. The only thing I felt truly comfortable with was my serve and volley tactic. To be fair, I would classify myself as a serve and volleyer, but I also like to take aggressive swings from the baseline to set up my approach. The initial part of that strategy proved to be more challenging than I thought. So who is the Tru Pro Firewire String for? Honestly, it's hard for me to pinpoint the exact player this string is meant for because I feel this string suffers from an identity crisis. On one hand, the Firewire's power and soft response makes this great for someone who might have a slower swing or just has flatter mechanics and just wants a boost in power. On the other hand, the Firewire also has good spin potential and string displacement for someone who has a more vertical swing path. Or maybe a serve and volleyer would like this string because that's where I felt most comfortable with the Firewire. Maybe someone in the comments can make a recommendation because honestly, I'm struggling to find the exact type of player. I know they are rare, but in my opinion, I think this string performed best on serve and volley. So please let me know in the comments who you think this string is for, and please also recommend another of Tru Pro's strings that play a little bit firmer with better control and a more crisp feel for my playstyle. Thank you for watching this review of the Tru Pro Firewire String right here on OpenCourt. If you guys like this content, be sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in an OpenCourt.